Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I'd like to begin today by saying a few things about the protests at Columbia University. Smashing windows with hammers and taking over university buildings is not free speech. It is lawlessness. And those who did it should promptly face the consequences that are not merely a slap on the wrist. Free speech, discussion, and even strong disagreement are fundamental American values, and campuses should be places where those values are cherished. Campuses cannot be places of learning and argument and discussion when protests veer into criminality. And those who commit such acts are doing nothing to convince others that their cause is just. It is also unacceptable when Jewish students are targeted for being Jewish, when protests exhibit verbal abuse, systemic intimidation, or glorification of the murderous and hateful Hamas or the violence of October 7th. As I said in my speech here on the floor last November, and many times since, that is anti-Semitism. It is loathful. It is unacceptable. Now, on another note, sad note, yesterday in North Carolina, 4 law enforcement officers, including a deputy U.S. Marshal, were killed in the deadliest attack against U.S. law enforcement in 8 years. Several other officers have been injured. Today, the Senate mourns the loss of these dedicated public servants. We grieve with their families. And we must do more to prevent shootings like this that involve AR-style weapons. It's a tragic reminder that today, too many dangerous assault rifles continue to plague too many of our communities. And Congress has a responsibility to get these weapons of war off our streets. My heart goes out to all the families who have lost loved ones in this attack. And I thank all of our law enforcement officers who were on the scene working to keep the community safe. And finally, Mr. President, I'd like to take a moment to recognize Bill Samuel of the AFL-CIO, a man who has spent his career fighting for America's working men and women. So many of us in this chamber, on both sides of the aisle, have worked closely with Bill over the decades, and we will certainly miss him as he steps down from his longtime post as Director of Government Affairs for the AFL-CIO. Ever since his early days in the labor movement, when he worked for the National Treasury Employees Union, the American Federation of Government Employees, and the United Mine Workers, Bill's been at the forefront of improving working conditions. He continued that fight while serving at the Department of Labor and on the staff of former Vice President Al Gore. In 2001, after AFL-CIO President John Sweeney hired Bill to lead his congressional efforts, Bill quickly got to work, organizing, lobbying grassroots efforts, communicating with senators, members of Congress, the administration, and AFL-CIO union members. Bill quickly gained the trust of members through his candor, his dedication, his pragmatism. Through his partnership with the AFL's next president, Rich Trumka, Bill brought the labor movement's legislative efforts to new heights. Bill was a tireless advocate, working closely with us on critical, important issues such as the Employee Free Choice Act, the Affordable Care Act, the Border Security Act of 2013. Man, our country would have been better off had that bill passed the House. The pensions bill, CHIPS, infrastructure, the Inflation Reduction Act, and so much more. We may not have won every battle, but we were always there fighting to improve the lives of working men and women, Mr. President. I wish Bill the best as he moves on to new challenges, and I'm comforted in knowing he will still be involved in the fight for progress. Yield the floor. Note the absence of a quorum.